All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Black Independent Show, where we talk about politics and issues going on in the United States and around the world from an independent black perspective. And this week, so far, has been a lot going on, right, concerning blacks in politics, or and particularly, there has been an issue going on with the president Trump and some members of Congress for women of color, Ilhan Omar Ocasio Cortez, and a few others, or rather a couple others, where they have been singled out because of their criticisms of some of the policies that the United States has been carrying out. And they have been accused of being anti American or hating America, and they have been told to go back to where they come from. This, of course, is an old white racist trope that has been used against black people and other non whites who have historically had criticisms for the United States, legitimate criticisms at that. And instead of white people or white racists facing the facts of the wrong, and maybe even some whites who would not be, that you could classify as being open white racists, meaning they're not whites, they're not members of the Klan, they're not members of the White Citizens Council or some openly blatant white racist organization. They just your everyday white citizen. However, they still hold such views. And when they hear criticisms of what the United States is doing, or what some those who are or those who are supposed to be in positions of government authority are doing against fellow citizens, instead of addressing that and facing that wrong and saying, yeah, that's wrong, that needs to stop or needs to change, instead of them facing those claims or those charges or addressing them, they become arrogant and they say, well, if you don't like it, leave. Or they say, love it or leave it, as you see on the screen, which is something that the Ku Klux Klan promoted, as you see in the picture on the screen. And I've always seen this, even when I was younger, I would see this and hear this, and would always wonder about this statement, why they would say, these were some claims. Even when I was younger, they used to have this thing about chip on your shoulder. You have a chip on your shoulder, right? These are all, of course, deflections, right? These are all deflections from the legitimate grievance that is being lobbied against this nation. And so these slogans of love it or leave it, or go back to where you came from, or you got a chip on your shoulder, or you're angry, or you're just an angry this or that, these are all deflections that white bigots use to avoid addressing the very legitimate claims that are being made against this country and certain people in this country. And so here they are again, doing it again. These congresswomen, along with others, have legitimate criticisms of what this country is doing and has been doing. Right? It is a country with a historical racist problem. Its violations of what it has done to Native, Indigenous Americans, to Black Americans, to Asian Americans, particularly the Chinese and the Japanese Americans, right? It has a long history, but people have this, they seem to have this fantasy image of America being this country that has been perfect and, you know, and has allegedly lived up to the we have some connection issues here. Right? They seem to think that America has done no wrong. Right? If you listen to some of these people. So when you criticize it, they want to hold on to this fantasy. They want to hold on to the America that's in their imagination, which is the America that is supposedly perfect and has done no wrong and is not racist, right? But that's the America of their imagination. For those of us who have not grown up as whites in America, oh, we know a different America. We know a different America. For those of you who have actually looked at the history of America and have been willing to face it, you know a different America. You know America that has not fully, truly lived up to the ideals that it has put forward in its documents. And that's the problem here. What Ilhan has said, or Talib has said, or Ocasio-Cortez has said, right? The gripes and the arguments they have put forward are legitimate gripes. Putting children in cages is a legitimate criticism. How are you sitting there saying, oh, if you don't like it, go home and leave? What the hell? Is that what happened in Nazi Germany? Were there any Germans who complained about putting fellow Jewish white German citizens in concentration camps and exterminating them? Imagine you being a German citizen, you are talking about the evil of that, and your fellow German citizen says to you, "Hey, if you don't like it, you can leave. You can go somewhere else." Like, what the hell? How about we address the fact that there are fellow citizens being exterminated, being put in camps, rather than, well, if you don't like what's going on. No, it's not about what's not liking and going somewhere. It's about, hey, something evil is being done. And that's the part I'm focusing on. I know people can say, oh, well, the people at the border, they're not citizens. Yeah, no, the point is that there's an evil that's being done, and we have to address the evil rather than, well, hey, if you don't like it, leave. No, it's not a fact. It's not a matter of whether I don't like it, leave it. It's a matter of how about we address this evil and tell our government to stop the evil that's being done, rather than, well, hey, if you don't like it, yeah, I don't like evil. So also, if I don't like the evil, leave so the evil can go on. And then you'll go down in history like the Nazi Germans did at that time, where we look back on history and we say how evil they were for what they did. Is that what you want? Perhaps some of you, see, that's the thing. I've said this before. A lot of these people don't think what they're doing is wrong. That's the interesting thing about white bigotry and white racism, is that they don't think that what they're doing is wrong. These devils didn't think anything was wrong with Jim Crow. These devils didn't think anything wrong when they, put Japanese Americans in camps. These devils didn't think there's anything wrong when they were lynching black people and hanging them from trees and burning them alive and doing all types of other abuses and torture. They didn't think that they were doing anything wrong. That's the interesting thing about this. Clearly the Germans, the Nazi Germans, they didn't think that they were doing anything wrong. Right? None of these people seem to think that they're doing anything wrong. And then when you call them on it and show them that they're wrong, instead of having their conscious talk to them, no, they're arrogant bastards and bitches. And instead, they tell you to shut up and leave, or go somewhere else if you don't like it, or love it or leave it. Like, what the hell? So you don't want to face your evil. So instead of facing your evil, you tell people to be quiet so you don't have to be reminded of the evil that you do. That's wow. That's evil in it of itself right there. Right? That's evil in and of itself when you are so arrogant that you don't even want to face the wrong that you're doing. You rather tell people, hey, be quiet. Don't remind me of the evil that I'm doing. And that's what that really amounts to. When they say love it or leave it, or if you don't like it, get out, that's them really saying, hey, stop reminding me of the evil that I'm doing. So just remember that, all right? Whenever you see one of these white bigots tell you to love it or leave it, or if you don't like it, to go back where you came from, or whatever the case, when you hear that, translate that in your mind as, stop reminding me of the evil that I'm doing, or the evil that my country is doing, or the evil that I support. That's what that really means. That's what that really translates that as. Just like you see the picture on the screen of the Klan. This is Klan country, love it or leave it. What was the Klan doing, these white racist devils? What were they doing? They were mistreating black people, harming them, terrorizing them, mistreating them, abusing them. So when you start to speak out, hey, you're abusing us, you're torturing us, you're terrorizing us. Hey, if you don't love it, leave it. That's their response. That's the response of a devil, who wants to do evil. Hey, if you don't love what we're doing, then leave it. Well, what the hell? So you don't want to stop the evil? You don't want to stop mistreating us? And that's what's going on here. They don't want to stop mistreating the children and the people at the border. They don't want to stop putting them in cages and torturing them and all the things we heard, not letting people take a bath for a week or longer. They don't want to stop that. They want to do the evil that they do, right? They want to continue to do the evil that they do. I guess that's just the way they are. Right? That's just the way they are. But this goes further too, as that when they tell us to go back to where they came from, as Minister Farrakhan said many years ago on the Donahue Show, that they need to be reminded who they are, and that they are not native anywhere on this earth in the lands that they occupy. They're not native to America. They're not native to South America. They're not native to Africa. They're not native to Australia. Many of these places that they occupy and control now are places that they invaded. Remember that. So remind them when they tell you to go back. Remind them where the hell they come from. Remind them where they and their ancestors come from, and tell them, shut up. No, if you don't like it, if you can't get along with other people on this earth, you take your ass back to where you came from. And if we told you to go back to where you come from, where would you go? Where would you go if we told you to go back to where your ass came from? Because obviously it's you. These are the people with the problem. They can't get along with anybody. They can't get along with non-whites, even though they occupy the land of non-whites. This is the land of the Native Indigenous American. Your ancestors took their land, and you control it to this day, and you're still racist as hell. Can't get along with other people, people of color. Then take your ass back to where white people are from. Same thing in Australia. You went there, the whites went there to Australia, took it over, murdered and killed the indigenous Aborigines people, and control it to this day, and there's still some racism going on in Australia. Remember though, white people, you're not a native anywhere on this earth. All these places you occupy and control are not your native lands. They're not the lands that your ancestors originally come from. So you really don't have the right to tell anybody to go any damn where. And that's the position that I take. No white person has the right to tell me as a black man ever to go back somewhere else. Never. Especially here in America. You don't have the right to tell me to go any damn where, because you are not the original people of this nation, of this land, rather. So I never accept when a white person tells me when I have any legitimate criticisms for America and what it does wrong, to tell me to go back somewhere else or to love it. I don't accept it. I do not accept such from any white person. I tell them, you shut up and be quiet, because this is not your land. You are not the native people of this land. This is not your original land. So you have no right to tell me as a black man to go anywhere, or any other person of color that's on this land to go back, even if they're immigrant, to go back, because you are not the original people of this land. And so I want to tell you that if you are a person of color and you hear a white person tell you to go back, please use that. Tell them you shut up. Tell them this is not your land. You tell them that you are not the natives of this land. Tell them rather, no, if you don't like what I'm saying, if you don't like it, no, you need to leave. You need to leave. You take your ass back to Europe so you can be amongst whites where you might feel a little happier than, since you can't seem to get along with people of color on this original land of people of color. No, you go back, you leave it, you go somewhere else. And that's the other thing too, is that it's interesting how that's their go-to statement is love it or leave it or go back, instead of saying, how about let's fix the problem, right? Instead of saying, let's fix the problem, right? I always use the example of a house or a car. You have a nice car, and let's say there's a problem with that car. Maybe the tire's flat, right? Or there's a broken window on the car, or there's a rip in the seat, and you complain about that. Do you leave your car on the side of the road when it has a flat and abandon it? Or do you say, let me fix the flat. Let me fix that broken window. Let me repair the tear in the seat. Or do you say, there's a problem. I'm just gonna leave my car, forget it. I'm gonna abandon it on the side of the road and leave it and walk away from it and never come back. No, you say, if you're smart, you say, I'm gonna fix this. I like this car. Let me fix it. If you have a house and the house has a problem, same thing, a broken window in the house. Maybe the boiler that heats up the water doesn't work. There's a problem with the wires or something. But the rest of the house is in pretty good shape. But you complain about it. You talk about that problem. Do you say, you know what, this house has a problem. I'm just going to give it up and I'm leaving it. No, you say, fix it. Let me fix the problem. Let me fix the window. Let me fix the boiler. Let me fix the electrical problem. You don't say, let me leave it, abandon it. Right? And if you do that, you're a weak person. Weak people leave problems behind. But you know what? Maybe that is the white European way. Because if we know their history, that's what they did. That's how America was colonized. Because instead of them addressing the problems they were facing where they came from, back in England, Britain, instead of facing that problem, they left and came to take these lands of the native indigenous Americans. But you know what was interesting about them just leaving it and not fixing it? That the problem followed them over here, right? See? Because they didn't stay to fix the problem that they were suffering in Europe, that problem followed them when they came to America and took it from the Native Americans. They still had to deal with the British. Isn't that interesting, right? When they left Britain, they still had to deal with the British. The problem followed them over here to the colonies until finally they had to do what? They had to fight the British in the Revolutionary War to win their independence from the British Kingdom. You see? See, if they had stayed over in England and fought the problem there, perhaps it wouldn't have been able to follow them when they came over to the Americas. But instead, because they left the problem behind, thinking that that was going to solve their problem, the problem followed them to the Americas, and they finally had to fight the Revolutionary War to defeat the British, to finally become free and independent, so the British problem could leave them, the British kingdom could leave them alone. And see, that's the same thing that will go here. If we were to say, you know what, America, to hell with you, we're going to leave, we're going to go to Africa, we're going to go back to wherever, The problem of imperialistic white racist America would follow us over there. We wouldn't be able, it wouldn't leave us alone, see? We would say, okay, we're leaving. But the problem would follow us. America's white racism and imperialism would still follow us as we left. And then we would wind up having to deal with it anyway. So best thing to do is to just stay and face the problem and fix it. Right? Make America better. Make America a better place. Not leave the problem behind, because the problem will follow us. I guarantee you that's what would happen if we all decided to leave. The problem would face us. America, the white racism and imperialism and white supremacy of America is too arrogant. It would follow us wherever we went, as we see it doing now, right? America's very imperialistic around the world. You see how they tell Iran you can't have nuclear weapons. They want to tell North Korea you can't do this, do that. They want to tell Pakistan you can't have this, can't have that, right? So it would be the same thing, right? If we left, it would be the same thing. Wherever we went, they would wind up trying to tell us that we can't develop this kind of this, we can't have these kind of weapons, sanctions, and until it would be some kind of conflict. There would be some kind of war, and we would have to still deal with America's racism and imperialism anyway. So that's why leaving the problem is not a solution. But for the white European, I guess that's the way they think. They're weak people, and therefore, instead of trying to fix it, they want to leave the problem behind. But that doesn't leave the problem behind, does it? See? So no, that's the solution for weak people. Weak people leave a problem and instead of trying to solve it. Instead of trying to make it better, weak people say, I'm not going to deal with it, and they leave it. But the problem remains behind. And that's how they think. And that's why they can't think about it. That's why they can't say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we need to fix this. No, don't leave it. Let's stay and fix the problem. Because they're weak, they say love it or leave it. Instead of trying to address the problem, instead of trying to fix it, it's love it or leave it. It's go back to where you came from. Stop telling us about the evil. Stop telling us about the wrong that we're doing. Go back to where you came from instead. No, how about let's fix this problem? Think about it like this. Think about the people that we know in history that have been, human rights, people who fought for human rights, people who fought for civil rights. Think of those persons, such as Martin Luther King. Imagine if Martin Luther King said, you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna leave it. We're instead of him picking up the torch to fight against white racism in America and discrimination. What if he had said, you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna leave it. We're just gonna leave you guys. We're gonna leave it. America may have still been. I mean, it's still racist, yes, but maybe it would have still been practicing Jim Crow if the people didn't decide to fight in the civil rights and march and protest. Maybe America might still be practicing civil rights where black people still would have to sit at the back of the bus and drink only from the black water fountain and the white water fountain and the black bathroom and the white bathroom, and no colored people could eat at a restaurant, right? Maybe America might still be doing that if Martin Luther King and those who fought in the civil rights movement said, okay, we're just going to leave. We're not going to love it. We're going to leave it. America might still be practicing open racism like that. Again, it's still racist. But at least we were able to stop the blatant racist laws that were there. Imagine if Nelson Mandela in South Africa, even though that's his native land, said that instead of fighting against apartheid, white racist apartheid in South Africa, that instead of fighting against it, he said, we're going to leave it. South Africa might still be practicing blatant open apartheid to this very day. Imagine Gandhi from India. Yes, I know there are reports that Gandhi was a racist himself against other people of color. Sad and unfortunate. But just for the sake of argument, he still fought at least against the British white racism, right? So imagine if Gandhi did not take up his stance against the evil of the white racism of the British. Maybe India may have still been occupied by the white racist British to this day. And the other number of human rights, fighters for human rights, fighters for civil rights throughout the world in other countries. Imagine if they decided not to take up the cause and just said, okay, we're going to leave it. Then those bigots and racists from those places would never maybe have changed their mind on their own. Right? They would have, because obviously they didn't think they were doing anything wrong anyway. So if there was no one to make them face the evil that they're doing, make them face their racism, make them face their bigotry, their abuse, their discrimination, their torture. If there was no one to tell them that they're doing wrong and to stand up against them, and instead rather left the place, to this day those places would still probably be practicing those evil, murderous and torturous and discriminatory ways. America probably would still be practicing Jim Crow if Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, NAACP, and various other organizations that stood up for the rights of black people did not stand up and instead left. America would still probably be practicing openly, let's say openly practicing those Jim Crow discriminatory laws, if not for those persons, if they had left. But you know what's interesting about these white bigots is that some of them would rather still be doing that, wouldn't they? Right? Some of them would rather still be doing that. They'd rather have it that way. Right? This is also why the Make America Great thing, to me, you know, when I look at it, doesn't make sense to me, because I always think, when was America great? Tell me the year that America was great. Because any past years that you give, we have a response to that America couldn't have been great at that time because there was Jim Crow at that time. There was racial discrimination against black people at that time. So it couldn't have been great at that time. So no matter what year you give back in the past, it was never great because of the fact that it had that imperfection of slavery or Jim Crow discrimination or killing and taking land from Native Americans or violating treaties with indigenous Native Americans, massacring them, killing them, taking their land. Discrimination against Chinese people coming to America, putting Japanese Americans in camps. So what time could you really tell me that America was great? When you could say, make America great again. When the hell was it ever great before? For you to say, make it great again. It was never great before. Why? Because in any time you can go back to, it had these serious imperfections. It had these practices of racism, white racism. So it could never really be great, could have been great before. Never. So the only thing we can really do to America is to make it better. But never great again, because it was never great before, because of its history of racism against various people of color. So I'll end it by saying this. Remember, when they tell us to go back, respond back to said person and say, no, you as a white racist bigot does not have the right to tell me to go back anywhere, because this is not your land. This land was not originally your land. This was not originally the land of your people. Your people come from Europe. So no, I will not accept you as a white person telling me to go back any damn where. You take your ass back to Europe if you don't like it here. You go back. If you can't get along with people of color here in this land that your ancestors invaded and stole from the native indigenous American, then if anybody has to leave, you need to leave. You need to leave. Tell them that if they can't deal with, if they are unwilling to deal with and address the evil that they're doing, tell them you need to go back. Tell them either, no, we're going to face this problem and fix it, or you need to leave. You need to stop the evil that you're doing. Not love it or leave it. Not go back to where you came from. That shows how weak they are. That shows that you can't face the facts of the evil that you're doing. That instead of facing it and addressing it and saying, let's change it, let's fix it, let's make it better, you want people to be quiet so you can continue to do the evil that you do. So do not accept from any white person in this country telling you to go back anywhere or to leave it anywhere. Never accept that. Make sure you tell them, you set them straight. Make sure you set them straight. You tell them this is not you, this is not the land of your people. Right? Y'all are invaders. So you don't have the right to tell anybody to go back any damn where, because you are the descendants of invaders. You are the descendants of the colonizer. You are the descendants of the people who invaded this country and took from the Native Americans and killed. So no, you do not have the right to tell anybody to go anywhere except yourselves. All right. So with that being said, we'll end it on that. Please support the Black Independent. If you like the commentaries that we give, by all means, go ahead and make a donation to the Black Independent channel with the links in the description of this video. All right. With that being said, I'm signing off. Appreciate those who watch and support, and we will catch you on the next show. Take care.